Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Steven Melendez, and I'm going to be bringing you the latest and greatest in soccer news from around the world. Hope everyone's doing well. Welcome back to your favorite soccer podcast. I'm excited to be talking some more soccer with you guys and just hanging out here for the next hour and a half so we can just, talk about our favorite sport and just get into it. So let's just talk about what we're going to be discussing in today's show, starting with the first part of the show. We're going to be talking about the Premier League, just giving a bit of a recap of the, games that have just happened over the past couple of days. We got some changes going on in the table, so I'm going to be discussing that as well. Second part of the show, we have some more interesting games going on throughout the other domestic leagues. I want to talk about those and, also discuss the tables in those leagues as well, as things are really spicing up as we're now getting closer to, the halfway point of the season. And then we're already in that January transfer window, guys. So the third part of the show, we're going to be talking all about that transfer news and the rumors, who's moving where, what's going on. So we're going to be talking about that. And then in the last part of the show, we're going to be continuing my top 10 current players in each national team. And this time we're going to be talking about Germany. So those top 10 Germany players right now. Let's just get started with the Premier League recap. I believe I wasn't able to get into some of those Wednesday games from match day 13, where with Arsenal being able to get that draw against Southampton, despite having a red card, and it just seems to be the case for them that, a couple weeks ago it was Pepe, and then it was Xhaka, and now Gabriel, each of them getting red cards in vital moments of the game, because every single time Arsenal come out in the second half, they're playing, like an absolutely different team. I don't know what Mikel Arteta is saying at halftime, but it certainly is changing the way the team plays, because when they come out in the first 45 minutes, they're terrible. They're playing like a relegation battle team. But then when they come out in the second half, it's different. They're playing like a team that what we expected to see early on in this season, to be battling for Champions League, maybe Europa League, and they get a goal to spice things up. But then a red card comes in and just halts all that momentum. And that happened in this game again. Gabriel, in the 52nd minute, Aubameyang scores one of those goals that it's just a normal routine goal for Aubameyang. And you're thinking, that's it. Arsenal, they've taken control of this game. They're playing so much better, so much more together. They just need to keep a level head, and they'll win, and they'll get these 3 points. Yet, Gabriel gets after having already a yellow card earlier in the game, picks up another, really dumb foul, to be honest, and gets the red card. You can't hold on to a player when you have a yellow card already. You got to let him go. You got to trust your team, really. And he didn't do that. He picked up his red, and it halted all the momentum for Arsenal. Luckily, they were able to hold on to that draw and still get a point, which honestly, at this point of their season, even a point will be good enough, because, they're literally in a relegation battle. After starting the season off so well against Fulham, and, obviously fans being extremely excited, they're in 15th place. They literally have, we're going to talk about the game they just had against Everton, but that now makes it 4 losses in their last 5 games. with that draw to Southampton in between that, which is a good result because obviously Southampton right now, they're a top 5 team, mixed in there with Liverpool, Everton, Tottenham, Leicester City, and ahead of Man City and Man United and Chelsea, which is incredible to think. But still, I mean, Arsenal with the level of club that they are, for them to be playing the way that they did and to just continue to just not make the smart plays and just get in front of themselves, just create their own obstacles, is the main reason why they are as low as they are. Another game that we missed out there, Everton versus Leicester City. That's one of the more exciting games, and Everton were able to step up to the challenge and win 2-0, with Charlison getting a goal, Holgate getting a goal in the second half to make it 2-0. And Leicester kind of feels like, even though they're still able to maintain a top 4 position, it looks like those injuries are certainly catching up. I mean, they got 3 losses in their last 5 games. And now they got to take on Tottenham. And that's not an easy game. Obviously, Tottenham, even though they have dropped a few points in their last 3 or 4 games, they're still one of the better teams. They have one of the best duos in all of football right now, and it's going to be a hard game to win. So you got to, they have to try to take care of business, at least against those lower sides. Not to say Everton's a lower side. I mean, they're one of the better teams in the Premier League right now. But still, it's like they need to put up a better fight. I mean, because in that game, you look at the stats, and it was kind of even. I mean, they had more shots, but only out of those 14 shots, only 2 of them were on target. They had more possession. Their passing was better, but they just weren't being efficient in front of goal. And they had Jamie Vardy up there. They had Madison. They had Harvey Barnes. Guys, Tillemans, guys who have been, consistently producing for them. It just wasn't the case in this game. Everton's midfield of Decore, Alan, obviously that backfield of, that back line of Keane and Yerry Mina, who have been playing extremely well back there. Godfrey and Holgate also playing really well for Everton. It's just, it's all coming together for them. And for Leicester City, they're just, you can tell that they're obviously missing a few pieces. Now, you look at some of the other games, and they weren't as exciting, even though, I completely forgot about this one. Liverpool versus Tottenham. I mean, obviously, you got number 1 and number 2 at the time in the Premier League, and you're wondering which one's going to step up here. And Liverpool were able to get the win, a 2-1 victory. It was very close. Song, after Mohamed Salah opened up the scoring in the 26th minute with a beautiful goal, Song came right back, and it was a really nice counter-attacking goal that Tottenham have been doing, game in and game out this year. But then it was pretty much a stalemate from that point on, back and forth. I mean, both teams got a few goals, but Liverpool were pretty much holding on to the momentum throughout most of that second half, and it eventually was rewarded with a 90th minute header from Roberto Firmino to take the lead and pretty much make that separation at the top of the table. This, you could look back at this game, like a month or a month and a half from now, when things are starting to get tight in the race, where this game was the one that really made that separation. And now with Liverpool winning again, we're going to talk about that 7-0 destruction of Crystal Palace this week. Liverpool are essentially pulling away at the top of the table. And not that it's surprising. I mean, we knew Liverpool coming into the season were going to be one of the better teams in this English top flight, and they're proving it once again. Even with the injuries, it's just incredible, like what Jurgen Klopp has been able to do there, and like the culture and the system they've been able to create there. It kind of feels unstoppable. And unlike Man City, who have clearly been struggling this season, it just has a different feel. It feels like something way more fluid, way more smooth, and it feels like Liverpool are certainly going to be the favorites throughout this season. Another game, the other games were, like a little bit underwhelming, and we had a goalless draw between Fulham and Brighton. Leeds United did destroy Newcastle United 5-2. West Ham and Crystal Palace had a 1-1 draw, which, I mean, for West Ham, that's not the result they were probably looking for after being, they've been near the top, and they're in that top 10 still, even with the draw. But, obviously with that start of the season looking so well, maybe they've dropped a few points in their last 3 games and could be dropping a little lower where people, at the time expected them. the Manchester United game. That was the one where I was really excited to see what can Manchester United do. Can they drop the ball again and continue to struggle? And they almost did. They gave up a 5th-minute goal to McGoldrick of Sheffield United. Literally, and I didn't know this, but Sheffield United are now they're having the worst start in Premier League history. They've had they're in the middle of the worst start in Premier League history with their 12 losses in 13 games. 1 draw and 12 losses. That's terrible. Absolutely terrible. They just haven't been able to take care of business and really, what does it say, like in those tight games, because even like their goal differential, it's -17, -17. That's bad. But West Brom's at -16, and they got a win and 4 draws. So it's like they're at least able to win those tight games, or at least get a few results in those tight games, while with Sheffield United, they have not been able to do that whatsoever. And in this game, they started off hot. I mean, they got that early goal. I mean, it was a really bad mistake from Dean Henderson, who got the start over De Gea. Certainly didn't do himself any favors in this game, though he did get a really nice save late in the game to hold Sheffield United to 2 goals, because they picked up a goal in the 87th minute, which was just poor for Manchester United. It just felt like the game was already over after being up 3-1 for most of this game, after getting a goal, a really nice goal. What really wasn't that nice a goal from Marcus Rashford. The first one was in the 26th minute. In the 51st minute, it was kind of like a soft shot, but the goalkeeper, what's his name? Was it Ramsdale? Just terrible goalkeeping. Like, it was really, really bad goalkeeping, and certainly it shouldn't have been 3-1 for Man United, but Marcus Rashford did get the goal. McGoldrick got another goal in the 87th minute to make it 3-2, and Sheffield United were actually putting pressure on Manchester United throughout that second half and making it a threat that they could actually get a draw here. And how bad would that have been? Even a 3-2 win is bad for Manchester United, honestly, because they have so much talent that you expect, especially against a team that's started as bad as Sheffield United has. You should expect them to absolutely dominate this team, but really not so much, because they've been just as inconsistent when you look at their expectations. Like when you compare the expectations of Sheffield United to Manchester United, they're kind of in the same place, both being extremely inconsistent and not able to do anything right, it seems, and so Manchester United were still able to escape with a 3-2 win, get all 3 points, and head up a little bit more on the table. They are in 7th place at the moment. They do have 4 or 5 wins in their last 6, and they look good. They're looking good, but they're just scraping by. I mean, they have a +3 goal differential, so they're not blowing anyone out of the water. Their offense is good. I mean, 22 goals. I think that's in the top half. I mean, but not really. That's really like mid-table good. And then 19 goals allowed. That's kind of mid-table as well. So they've been very inconsistent. They've been able to at least get results in their last few games, which has been able to put them at least in contention for a Europa or Champions League spot. But like to challenge for the top, which is what I was expecting early on in the season, no way. So now we're going to move on to this week's games, which we've had only 4 be played so far, because we had 4 being played today on Saturday. We have a few more happening on Sunday, so I'll preview a couple of those as well. But first, we had the Liverpool versus Crystal Palace game, where Liverpool just absolutely blew out Crystal Palace in this game 7-0. And really early on in this game, Crystal Palace had some opportunities to at least get a goal on the board, even though Minamino, who got the start over Mo Salah so Salah can get a little bit of rest in this game, though he came in and absolutely balled, had 2 goals. I believe he had an assist as well. But Minamino got on the scoreboard early in the 3rd minute. So obviously Liverpool were off and running. However, it didn't allow Crystal Palace to really get out of their game. They were still getting opportunities and were getting into Liverpool's final third early on in that game. And they had chances to score. They just didn't take advantage of them. There was one where I believe it was Ayew. Ayew had a golden chance to score on Alisson, and like it was literally just him. It was a one-on-one, and he decided to take like a back pass to Zaha, which I understand. Wilfried Zaha is their best player, but it was a terrible pass. It was way behind Zaha. You can tell the frustration on his face, and then Ayew, looking like a deer in the headlights, like, oh, what have I just done? I literally just missed a clear chance for us to at least tie the game up. Not that it would have done anything for them. They were still going to lose this game because then you got a goal from Mane in the 35th minute. Firmino got 2 goals. One in the first half right before halftime and another in the 68th minute. Jordan Henderson scored a nasty goal assisted by Trent Alexander-Arnold. And, of course, Mohamed Salah scoring in the 81st and 84th minute just to put... just to absolutely destroy Crystal Palace instead of 5-0, just making it 7-0 for good measure, and sending a message to the rest of the teams trying to reach them at the top of the table. And even Pep Guardiola said that he understands that Manchester City have a incredibly steep mountain to climb in order to try to challenge Liverpool for the top spot in the league. And really, I don't think they have a chance because even with these injuries, you can see Liverpool are still dominating their competition. And I understand Crystal Palace, they're not one of the better teams in the league. I mean, they're actually, I believe they're near the bottom of the league, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they're in the bottom half. They're 13th. They've been playing inconsistent. But still, even when Liverpool takes on their, the top competition, let's just go back and look at it. 4-0 Wolves. Let me keep going. 3-0 Leicester City. They did get a 1-1 draw against Man City. Obviously, that would have been a big game for Man City to win. 2-1 against West Ham. Let's see. 2-2 against Everton. Another point. Obviously, that 7-2 incredible loss to Aston Villa is an outlier. But they also beat Arsenal 3-1. They beat Chelsea 2-0. There's not going to be that many more games left against the top competition. And even if there is, Liverpool are taking care of business when they need to. And I didn't even say the 2-1 win against Tottenham. I completely just missed that one. But, their next couple games, they take on West Brom. They take on Newcastle. They do have a game against Southampton, which are, obviously one of the bigger surprises this season. But, nobody expects them to lose that game either because Liverpool are so good at what they do. They do have an FA Cup game against Aston Villa, so they're probably going to be looking to get some revenge against them. But overall, it's just been such a good season for Liverpool. Obviously not on the injury side. They obviously want to be healthy heading into the knockout rounds of the Champions League. But in terms of Premier League, I'm sure Jurgen Klopp feel comfortable with what they have to lead the table, and because Everton are behind them, but they've been a bit inconsistent even though they've won 3 games in a row. Tottenham dropping points in their last couple games, even though they have 2 of the better players in the league right now. They kind of seem inconsistent. Obviously, we'll see what they can do against Leicester City, but a draw against Crystal Palace. They beat Arsenal 2-0, but a draw against Chelsea as well. It hasn't really been dominating like it was early on in the season for Tottenham. And so no one's really expecting them to actually challenge Liverpool, consistently throughout the entire season. But then you look at some of the other games, you got Man City actually having a really good win against Southampton, beating them 1-0. Just doing just enough to get the 3 points, but at the end of the day, that's what they need. They don't really care how they get their wins, as long as they can get the 3 points. That's what's going to be most important for them. And Raheem Sterling picks up a goal early on in the 16th minute, and it wasn't really that much of a dominant win for Manchester City. They had 11 shots to Southampton's 9, 52% possession, so it really wasn't a dominating game, but still, they get the 3 points, get within a point of Southampton with a game in hand. So obviously, they're looking to get into that top 5. But like I said, to actually challenge Liverpool, they need help. They need other teams to make good performances against Liverpool, drop them down in the table. And Man City needs to stay consistent. No more of those dropping points like they were pretty much up until this point, because they just had 2 straight draws. And they need to win games. and they need to win a lot of them. Because if that doesn't happen, there's just no chance for them. And then Everton. Everton getting a good win against Arsenal, even though pretty much any team can beat Arsenal right now with the way they've been playing. Luckily for Arsenal, there was no red card, so hallelujah to that. I'm sure Arsenal fans are happy that there was at least some consistency on that end, or inconsistency on the red card end. But still, you got an own goal from Rob Holding, even though it wasn't really his fault. It's hard to really say, but Nicolas Pepe did get on the score sheet, 35th minute penalty. But then Yerry Mina, right before halftime, scores to make it 2-1 Everton, and that was all she wrote. Arsenal didn't bring their shooting boots, but neither did Everton. Both teams had 2 shots on target each. Even though Arsenal had more possession, it was pretty much the same as it has been the last couple games. They come out, and yes, they did score a goal, but they still look sloppy. And then in that second half, they looked better. But it just wasn't enough to be able to get a goal on Everton. Because Everton have been a really good team this year. That backline has been very solid. Of Godfrey, Holgate, Yerry Mina, and Michael Keane. Obviously, Pickford between the sticks. You got Doucouré, Sigurdsson, Calvert-Lewin, Iwobi, Richarlison. It's a very, very solid team. But they didn't have Aubameyang in this game. They just, I don't know. It's just that they were obviously missing that extra spark that guys like Pepe doesn't really give them as much as they were hoping for when they did sign him to that club record number. Saka, he's given you some good looks, but at the overall hasn't really been that upcoming prospect that I expected him to be. And Willian, after that incredible start, has been nowhere near as productive as anybody was expecting him to be, and we'll just have to wait and see what goes on there. And Eddie Nketiah, he's okay. I think he's not good enough to be like a backup striker for Aubameyang. They obviously need to use Lacazette more in that spot, in my opinion. But of course, I'm not the manager. That's Mikel Arteta. Who knows how much longer that will be for. But still, it's just another disappointing result for Arsenal and their fans. But Everton take care of business and get this win. And with 3 wins in a row now, they're just 5 points behind Liverpool, even though, they'll obviously need to stay consistent on that and hope Liverpool drops some points. They have a game against Sheffield United next, so obviously they'll be, looking to get an easy 3 points there. But then they got Manchester City and West Ham after that, followed by Wolves, Aston Villa, Leicester City. So they got some hard games coming up. It'll be interesting to see if they are able to step up to the challenge and get the results that they need in order to stay near the top of the table. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to be talking about the remaining domestic leagues and just talking about what's going on there right after this.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football, from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Hey guys, welcome back. If you missed the last segment, we talked about the Premier League. Of course, went over all the games that happened this past week. And the week before, I talked about a few games I weren't able to get into the last show. And now we're going to be talking about the other top 5 leagues, doing the same thing I did with the Premier League, just going over some of the games, some of the more interesting games that happened throughout the week. Obviously, about some of the teams that are near the top of the table, some that have disappointed so far this season, and then I'll go over the table as well. So let's just get started with the Bundesliga, where we had some very, very interesting matchups. We had a 1 versus 2 matchup. We had a couple Borussia teams failing to, get points this week. And then we also had an RB Leipzig team that also dropped the ball. So let's first start off with the Borussia teams, where Borussia Dortmund went up against Union Berlin and lost 2-1, a game that you would expect them to win, even though Union Berlin have certainly been good this season and continue to surprise people as they recently made it to the Bundesliga last season, their first time in the German top flight, and are now squarely in a top 5 position and battling for one of those European spots. It's a huge story. However, it's hard not to talk more about Borussia Dortmund and what is going on with their club. Just dropping points left and right. They have 3 losses in their last 5 games. Not something you expect from, a team as big as Dortmund. Yes, the teams above them are still very good. Bayer Leverkusen, RB Leipzig, Bayern Munich, obviously are some of the top teams in this league. But you expected Borussia Dortmund to be squarely in that tier. And they are clearly a tier below that. They're 6 points behind both Leverkusen and RB Leipzig, 8 behind Bayern Munich. And it just looks like their hopes of, battling for the title are just dwindling week by week, especially with this stretch that they're certainly going in right now. And, they have plenty of young talent. I mean, obviously, Haaland, Sancho, headline the talent on this team. But then you also got guys like Giovanni Reina, Jude Bellingham, and then veterans like Marco Reus, Mats Hummels, Emre Can, Thorgan Hazard. I mean, you got a lot of really good players on this team. And even Axel Witsel, but it's just not coming all together for this team. They just don't seem to be able to put together a good stretch. They started the season off pretty well, but they've dropped so many points and they've lost games. They've lost 5 games already this season. That is more than anybody else in the top 9. That is a very, very bad record. They have 1 draw, 7 wins in 13 games, and they just can't seem to find any consistent stretch. They played well early on, but then against teams that you expect them to get wins against, aside that 3-2 loss to Bayern Munich, which anybody can be expected to lose to Bayern Munich, they have dropped games against teams that they have usually beaten in the past. And I mean, that 5-1 loss to Stuttgart, even though Stuttgart, again, are one of those teams that have surprised this season and are playing extremely well, you still expect Borussia Dortmund to come out on top in that game. They just didn't, and they haven't throughout most of this season. And then now you look at the other Borussia team, Mönchengladbach. They lost 2-1 to Hoffenheim, and they picked up a red card in this game. It was Marcus Thuram in the 78th minute. They got an early goal from Lars Stindl. It was a penalty to open up the scoring, and they held on to that lead for a long time until one of the better strikers in the Bundesliga, Andrej Kramaric, scored in the 75th minute, shortly before that Marcus Thuram red card, and then literally right after, Ryan Sessegnon scored in the 86th minute to give Hoffenheim the lead and a much needed 3 points as they've been battling in that relegation zone. Surprising to me because I feel like Hoffenheim are one of those underrated teams, have a very good dynamic offense and attack, but obviously the Bundesliga is a very competitive league, and they're in 11th place with that win, while Mönchengladbach are now in 8th. Not where you would expect them to be entering this season, but yeah, they just have not been able to play consistent whatsoever. And they were one of the teams that I expected to be in that top 4, top 5 contention. But they are only 3 points behind Union Berlin. But they need to find some sort of consistency. I mean, in their last 4 games, they've got 3 draws and a loss. That's just not going to cut it when you're one of the top teams in the Bundesliga. And then you look at, they're below Stuttgart. Wolfsburg have been consistent this year. I mean, they've only lost one game. They have drawn 6, so their ability to win games hasn't really been there. However, over the last 5 games, they have won 3 of their last 5, which is solid. Better, that's 3 of 5 wins that they have overall this season in the last 5 games. So they've certainly been playing better. But for Borussia Mönchengladbach and Borussia Dortmund, they have been very inconsistent this season compared to the expectations that we had for them entering this new year. And now let's talk about that exciting 1 versus 2 matchup where we had Bayern Munich versus Bayer Leverkusen. And we had Bayern Munich answering the call and getting a 2-1 win over Bayer Leverkusen to reclaim their top spot in the Bundesliga. They had lost it to Leverkusen after last week, since they've been dropping points against some teams. I mean, it has been a little bit of a struggle for what we'd expect from Bayern Munich. I mean, even though they do have 3 wins in their last 5 games, the other 2 are draws, which are not what you expect from them, even though one of them was one of the most exciting games that we've seen so far this year, which was that 3-3 win against RB Leipzig. That was very exciting. A lot of these games, it's had to be Bayern Munich coming back from deficits, which is not usually the case for them, even though, it's obviously a good sign that they're able to, still reclaim at least a point. They've only lost 1 game all year. So they're certainly still the cream of the crop in terms of the Bundesliga. And in my opinion, I feel this, logjam at the top with Bayer Leverkusen, RB Leipzig battling them for a title spot will only benefit Bayern Munich in the long run, because getting that, having to, be super competitive in all these games, with every game counting, because obviously RB Leipzig and Leverkusen are right on their tail and trying to get that title. It'll just do wonders for Bayern Munich. And I feel the same way, because I've always felt like the Bundesliga and PSG and Liga, it's kind of the same thing, because, I mean, obviously I'm not trying to say in terms of talent, I still feel like Bundesliga are obviously way better, but in the terms of like Bayern Munich have pretty much monopolized Bundesliga and have just won so many titles that I feel like it just felt like it was always a given that Bayern Munich were going to win. But now that they're actually getting a challenge, it's just going to work so much better for them. They're going to be, ready to win most of these games, and they're going to be focused. And that's what you want to see from this Bayern Munich team. And whenever they, deal with some challenge and have to take on a team that, is going to give them trouble, they're able to answer the call and get wins, get points. And that's what they did here against Bayer Leverkusen. And for Bayer Leverkusen, I mean, it hurts. For Bayer Leverkusen, it absolutely has to hurt to lose this game. They were in it for most of it. They were very close. I mean, the possession was very even though their shooting was not there. Same thing with Bayern Munich. Neither team could really get much efficient offense or attack. They combined for 5 shots on target in total. But overall, Bayer Leverkusen, their offense, that attack, that's usually free-flowing and it's usually the strength of this club, just wasn't there as consistently as we usually see them. And that obviously has to do a lot with the way Bayern Munich has that high back line and just really disrupts whatever you want to do. So, big-time game for Bayern Munich. Just as always, gets the points that they need in order to continue to be at the top of Bundesliga. But this season is definitely far from over. It's going to be very exciting to see how this finishes up and what each team does during this January transfer window. Now let's move on to Serie A, where we continue to have Milan up on the top, AC Milan at the top of the table, but it is starting to get a lot closer with Inter Milan and Juventus just behind them with a point each. Inter Milan have obviously been dominating with 5 wins in a row, and we look at the last couple games. One of those wins was a one against Cagliari. Inter Milan just taking care of business. And this week, they defeated Napoli. Huge game from them. It was just a 1-0 win, but still, when you take on some of these top teams, you need to find ways to win. And of course, it did hurt. It doesn't help for Napoli when Insigne gets a red card in the 71st minute, and it instantly results in a penalty for Lukaku, who, as always, Lukaku's going to take care of business there and put it home. But yeah, Inter Milan get a 1-0 win here, get the 3 points, much needed 3 points as they want to stay at the top of the table, especially with Serie A being pretty much everything that they're fighting for now, as they're no longer in the Champions League. This is their season. They're going to be focusing solely on trying to win Serie A and getting that title, and surely they do not want to lose it to AC Milan, their rivals. And the same thing for Juventus. They don't want to lose it to them as well. But they're certainly starting to get their rhythm. Got 3 wins in their last 4 games. However, they have dropped way too many points. They've got 6 draws in their first 13 games. That is not going to cut it. Even though one of them was the last game against Atalanta where they drew 1-1. That was certainly a tight game there. But they got draws against, let's see, Benevento, Lazio, but Lazio have been so inconsistent this season. Verona, even though they've certainly surprised people this year, Juventus are supposed to take care of business against Verona. Same thing against Crotone, which they did not do. And a lot of that has to do with a red card they got, in kind of early on in that second half by Federico Chiesa. And then same thing against Roma, another red card, this time for Adrian Rabiot in the 62nd minute. They were still able to get a goal by Cristiano Ronaldo in the 69th with a man down, but they had to come back to win this game. And that was another point dropped for Juventus. Aside from that, they've pretty much taken care of business. I mean, a win against Spezia, they've beaten the teams that they have had to beat. But that's the thing, they haven't really been pushed this season. They really haven't. And they have a game against AC Milan coming up pretty soon. That's going to be a huge one for them to see if they can, change what's going on at the top of the table and reclaim the spot that has been theirs for so many years. And you look at the top teams in this league, and it's very tight. I mean, I already talked about AC Milan, Inter Milan, and Juventus being there at the top. But then you also got Roma, Napoli, Sassuolo with 24, 23, and 23 points apiece. Very close there with them. Verona with 20 points. You got Lazio and Atalanta just behind them with 18. So there's a lot of very tight races going on in Serie A. But I feel like the top 3 are starting to separate themselves. It's going to be a very exciting finish of the season. I mean, even though we're not at halfway yet, we're getting close to it. However, it'll be very interesting to see if one of these teams make a big time January transfer move to kind of separate themselves from the pack. I feel like AC Milan can certainly add a few pieces here and there, maybe one to their back line or someone up top with Zlatan now injured. It'll be interesting to see what happens there, but still, Serie A is certainly as competitive as ever, and Roma took care of business this week as well. I mean, they got a 3-1 win against Torino. Oh, this was actually last week. My apologies. They got a 3-1 win against Torino. We haven't had many of the games being played so far this week. We got a very exciting game between Atalanta and Roma, Sassuolo, Milan, and we also got Lazio and Napoli. So we have a very packed Sunday schedule for Serie A. Some very, very fun games. Ones that I guarantee you're going to want to pay attention to. It's going to have a lot to do with what happens at near the top of this table. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for Serie A. We're now going to move on to La Liga, where we have a couple things changing near the top of the table, which, as I expected, we have Atletico Madrid at the top of the table with 29 points in just 12 matches played. They did lose that game against Real Madrid, who are certainly surging as of late. But still, with a game in hand on the Real Madrid, they are still 3 points ahead of them. They still got so many wins in between that loss, and it's been Atletico Madrid's season so far. I mean, they've only allowed 5 goals. No other team in the entire league has allowed single-digit goals. That's so impressive. A team that I was expecting Real Madrid to be that, incredibly strong defensive team. And obviously Atletico Madrid have been known to be a defensive juggernaut with Diego Simeone managing them. It's just been known for so long. But I didn't expect them to be as good as Real Madrid on that end. However, what's been more surprising, and maybe not surprising, I kind of was talking about it before the season started, was Atletico Madrid's offense now vamping up. I mean, João Felix has certainly taken that next step to being, kind of like a one-man offense, but he needs support. Luis Suarez was in a little bit of a goal drought, did score 2 goals in his last game, and they're certainly going to need more of that as they head into the knockout rounds of the Champions League and try to continue to stay at the top of the table, because it's certainly tight. Same thing with all the other leagues. You got Atletico Madrid, even though they have a few games in hand on Real Sociedad, so that can still, they can certainly make a distance there. But on Real Madrid, they have a game in hand on pretty much every team that's anywhere near them, which bodes well for Atletico Madrid. They have some leeway there, even though I'm sure they're going to, keep their foot on the gas pedal and try to win as many games as possible, because it's been a while since Atletico Madrid have won the La Liga title. And it looks like this season could be their chance. Of course, there's still a lot of games left to be played, but they have done the early work and have certainly looked like the best team in La Liga so far this season. And for Real Sociedad, after looking like the best team in La Liga earlier this year, they have dropped a lot of points in their last 5 games. They have 3 draws and 2 straight losses in their last 5 games. And it's been a struggle for them. After starting off the season 7-2-1, they are now 7-5-3 and sit in that second spot still, even though I expect them to be to drop behind Real Madrid. And Real Sociedad's recent loss to Barcelona kind of spells what you would expect from them, even though they've certainly surprised people. It's not something that you kind of expected them to be consistently up at the top of the table all season. So now they're probably going to be dropping a few spots. I still feel like they can battle for one of those European spots, but it'll be interesting to see what happens there if they decide to make a move during this transfer window. And now Barcelona is starting to, get a little bit of a rhythm. They got 3 wins in the last 4 games, in their last 5 games. They have a game. The thing is, it's just so weird because they were able to defeat Real Sociedad, who are obviously not playing that well as of late. But then they get a draw against Valencia, and a draw that could have been avoided. I mean, they took an early lead, they were down early against Valencia, and then they equalized with Lionel Messi goal right before halftime. You're thinking, okay, they got the momentum, which then they took into the second half, scored early on in that second half, and then they gave up a goal in the 69th minute to make it a 2-2 game and drop points once again. And that just seems to always be the issue with Barcelona. They just can't consistently put good results together, and they're going to need to if they want to try to battle for one of those top spots in La Liga, which I honestly think there's no chance for them to claim the top spot. I feel like they're already far too behind Atletico Madrid. I mean, they're 8 points behind them, and Atletico Madrid have a game in hand on them. So I just don't see any way that they're able to, battle for a title. But to get a Champions League spot, absolutely 100% possible. So now we're going to move on to Ligue 1, which it's getting really exciting near the top of that table. You have Lyon and Lille at 1 and 2. Yes, that's right. No PSG. PSG is in 3rd place behind both those teams. And this week we have a very exciting matchup. We have PSG versus Lille. It'll be interesting to see if PSG can answer the call and get a win against one of the top teams in Ligue 1. It doesn't seem like it's going to be just another easy title for them, which is what like what I was saying about the Bundesliga and Bayern Munich. This is only going to help PSG because now it makes all the games that much more important. And it kind of shows that there is some sort of competition here, even though I feel like most of this has to do with the inconsistencies of PSG instead of, Lyon and Lille, who have certainly been good this season. I feel like it more has to do with PSG's inconsistencies than, anything that Lyon and Lille are doing. Because normally, PSG would be, instead of having those 4 losses that they have there, they'd be like 13 or 14, 1 and 0. That would normally be where they at, because that's the standard that PSG has set for them during this project. But they're not there, and you got Marseille behind them, who has a game in hand on them, so they can be up there, tied for them if they get a win in their next game. Even though they did drop their last game against Reims, not something that they are going to be proud of, because Reims have been one of the more inconsistent teams this season. But still, it's very exciting. I'm happy that we have a very competitive league on this year. It's something that I've been wanting to see ever since I became a PSG fan, and I have got it now. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to be talking about the transfer news and rumors going on as we inch closer to that January transfer window.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, everyone. If you missed the last segment, we talked about the remaining leagues. Obviously, we talked Bundesliga, Premier, La Liga, Serie A, Liga, and just talked about some of the interesting games that happened this past week, and just gave a little review of the table. And now we're going to be talking about the transfer news and rumors going on as we are edging closer to that January transfer window. So let's just talk about some of the done deals that I've heard about already, starting with that talented 20-year-old Hungarian winger, Dominik Szoboszlai, completing his $25 million Euro move to RB Leipzig from RB Salzburg. Obviously, that Red Bull connection shining bright there. And unfortunately for Arsenal, missing out on that highly touted player. You can't really blame them, because I've heard, it's funny because I'm listening on Arsenal Fan TV. I love that YouTube channel. They're so funny to listen to, and just, like I've said, like the passion that they have for that club, I love listening to. And, one of the guys who's regularly talking on that show says, who's going to want to join a team that's battling relegation in the Premier League? This doesn't matter how big the club is. Who wants to go there? There's going to be no European football next season, and, you can't blame anybody for not wanting to go there. And this is the result of that. Someone like Dominik Szoboszlai, who would have been an excellent creative midfielder or even, or winger for Arsenal, snubs them to go to RB Leipzig, who is an up-and-coming team that's regularly, being in the Champions League as they're consistently battling in the Bundesliga, and this season, they've been doing just as good. And there was even teams like Bayern Munich and Real Madrid eyeing him. Obviously, not putting as much effort into trying to get him because they're pretty solid. Would have just probably padded him as one of the prospects, but still, Dominik Szoboszlai goes to RB Leipzig and just that, which is a huge move for them. They get an extremely talented player that can certainly help in the attack with Timo Werner no longer there. And obviously, just will help them overall completely. And Arsenal just continue to lose out consistently. And talking about Arsenal, we got Mesut Ozil's agent saying that he has been getting, that his client has been getting consistent offers from around the world. A bunch of different clubs, obviously not top clubs, because this man hasn't been playing consistently for over a year easily, but however, it just looks like the 32-year-old Ozil wants to see out his contract at Arsenal, And I honestly, when I think about that, it puzzles me because this guy, at least when I first started playing, or started getting into soccer, because I told you guys, I've been maybe a fan now for 10 plus years now, somewhere around there. And when I was first a fan, Mesut Ozil was one of the premier playmakers in the world. He was just lighting it up with Real Madrid for a while, and obviously came to Arsenal and was one of their star players, and then just fell out of favor with, a bunch of managers. And when that happens to a guy that's as talented as Mesut Ozil, it raises questions. You wonder, what's going on? Is it, his work rate? Is it his effort? Is it, just the manager having beef with him? I don't know. You never really know, because that kind of talk doesn't really get out there that often. But when I see this, that, he has a chance, his contract ends at the end of the season. There's no reason why Arsenal would want to keep him, since they never play him. They don't even have him on their squad. And now he's getting offers from other teams. So he can obviously get out of there and play regularly at these other clubs. And the fact that he decides not to and wants to stay at Arsenal tells me two things. One, he has no motivation to play. He'd rather just wait out the contract, make his money, and just do what he's been doing for the past, year or so, which is just, collecting paychecks. And two, he just doesn't, like, everything that has happened from, him playing consistently to now is justifiable. It's, the fact that he's not getting playing time. It's like that. This decision to want to play out his contract, or I guess in his word, it would be sit out his contract, makes Arsenal fans feel like, fine. I'm perfectly fine with the fact that now he sits out, because if he wanted to play, if he was motivated to play, it's like, what have we been doing this whole time? Not playing him, not wanting, a premier playmaker. Even at this point, it can't get any worse for Arsenal. Why would we not want this guy playing on our squad? So regardless, Ozil's time at Arsenal is done. He will not be playing. I did hear a report that Arteta would possibly think about, adding him to the squad in February when, the January transfer window is done. And then maybe he gets a chance to play, but who knows what happens. I mean, this has been a long, there's been a very long saga that's just been exhausting for, I'm sure, everybody involved. And, when it's over, everybody will just be relieved. So, but that's where we are right now with Mesut Ozil. Now, moving on, we're going to be talking about PSG and how they are under pressure to find the funds to facilitate a new contract for Kylian Mbappe. As we all know, with the COVID pandemic hitting nearly every club hard financially, PSG is obviously no exception. And we'll have to figure out a way to come up with the funds, with sales of possibly Julian Draxler, Leandro Paredes. And when I hear this, I mean, at least there's talk about possibly making a contract. Like, as a PSG fan, I was always just worried that, after this contract was done, it was a done deal that he was moving on to Real Madrid. And maybe it still is. Who knows? And obviously a player like Kylian Mbappe, who doesn't really, talk much to the media, won't want to, make a big fuss about him wanting to move out. So obviously he won't be talking about it much. However, there has been talks about him, possibly be willing to sign an extension with PSG. And obviously same thing with Neymar, which, I can kind of just talk about that as well. And that is just music to my ears, because literally all I was thinking about and pretty much I had my mind set on was that we only had, like, after we signed him, we only have up until the end of his contract to try to do whatever we could with him, try to have as the best soccer, that we could possibly have. And then after that, that was it, and, not that we would just fall off a cliff, but we would have to try to, get something together to, make us relevant again. But the fact that now, he's possibly thinking about re-signing with us and staying with his hometown club, just makes me feel really good. And I don't care how you need to do it, whether you need to sign, sell Julian Draxler, Leandro Paredes. I mean, like as if those are, I mean, Paredes did play well towards the end of last season, and he was a very important player. Draxler is out of favor with Tuchel. He hasn't really played at all for our club, but even though I remember when he first came in, and it was very exciting, the way he was playing for us when we still had Zlatan. And it was a very exciting time for us when we had Draxler. So he's obviously had some good times with us, but it's no longer, important for him to stay with our club. It really is. And if we have to sell him in order to, hold on to Mbappe, and it's not even guaranteed that we'll get enough from those two players in order to sign him, we might have to let go of more, which, I mean, again, whatever it takes you do to sign Mbappe, easily the greatest young player in the world right now. Like, it's not even close. So yeah, you do what you have to do, PSG. Next we have some news, some rumors that a couple of Premier League sides in the Wolves, Southampton, Leicester City, and West Ham have all been said to be interested in a move for the Ukrainian left back Oleksandr Zinchenko. Like we all know, he hasn't been getting any regular time with the English giants, Manchester City, and a move away from the Etihad could be exactly what the 24-year-old defender needs, because, I mean, he's in that age where, like, if you don't produce, you're gonna just move on to one of those countries and not in one of those bottom feeding teams, and your career will ultimately just be irrelevant, in my opinion. I mean, obviously you'll still play good, but like with the kind of potential that Zinchenko came into Manchester City with, he needs to look for a move to one of these. I mean, these are still pretty good Premier League sides. I mean, Southampton's top 5, West Ham top 10, and obviously, Leicester and Wolves have been a good team in the Premier League for some time now. So making a move there, getting regular time, and producing well could be exactly what he needs to get his value back up there and make his move to another one of those top clubs. So next, Luka Modric. We have some Luka Modric news as he has been in contact with Jose Mourinho about a possible return to Tottenham. Now, there has been other reports, however, that Modric is having talks with Real Madrid over a new contract, but I'm sure that won't stop Mourinho from trying to get the talented midfielder into his squad. I mean, let's just be honest, Mourinho will not stop at anything when he has his mind set on something. That's just the way he is, and to be able to bring in Luka Modric would just be ridiculous. I mean, obviously Tottenham could use the talent. I mean, it's not like they are stacked beyond belief that they don't need guys like Luka Modric. I mean, he's one of the greatest midfielders of my time, and could certainly help his former club battle for one of those for a Premier League title. And it could be the missing piece for that team, which obviously have an incredible front. Two of Song and Harry Kane. If you add a holding midfielder or a box-to-box midfielder like Luka Modric that can help in all angles, it would just be incredible for them. Next, we have the legendary manager Louis van Gaal being offered the chance to take over as the manager for Chile. And, Van Gaal is currently in retirement, so I'm not really sure what it'll take to get him interested in the position. Maybe he is. Maybe he's re-sparked that interest in competition. And man, that would be a hell of a move for Chile. To be able to bring in a manager of the caliber of Van Gaal, what he's been able to do throughout his career, he's one of the greatest managers of all time, and will certainly help Chile, move on to that next generation, because of course you got Arturo Vidal, you got Alexis Sanchez, all on the wrong side of 30, and you got a lot of those younger players now being needed to step up, and a guy like and a manager of Louis van Gaal's just ability will certainly help them in that transition. Next, we have some Inter Miami news I'm always happy to talk about. With David Beckham looking to his old club, Manchester United, for some fresh talent as he tries to lure out-of-favor goalkeeper Sergio Romero to Inter Miami. And that would be a great move. I mean, obviously, Sergio Romero is the Argentinian international goalkeeper. He starts for them regularly and would obviously be a huge move for Inter Miami. I'm hoping that can happen, even though I was really sad that Luis Robles was waived or released by Inter Miami. I thought he was, excellent for us all season. Obviously, the injury, sucked, and probably they know something that I don't, where, he just won't be the same with that injury. Obviously, he was already getting up there in age, but, getting a goalkeeper like Romero, who I believe is still in his late 20s, if I'm not mistaken. Let me take a quick little look at that. Sergio Romero. We look at him. He is, I believe he might be in his 30s already. He might be in his 30s. Oh, he's 33 actually. So he's already getting a little bit up there, but still, for a goalkeeper that's still, that's still in his prime, probably getting to, to the back end of his prime already, and he's not, one of those big time signings, but for, that could be one of those moves that, could just change a team in MLS, because obviously the talent's not as crazy over there, but getting a guy like Sergio Romero, who has been there, done that, has continued to become Argentina's main goalkeeper, that says a lot, and, he'll certainly help the club in a lot of ways. Next, we have Felipe Coutinho back on the market as Barcelona are willing to listen to offers for the star midfielder. And, man, you got to feel bad for Coutinho. I mean, getting loaned out to Bayern Munich, even though he won the Champions League and was a solid part of their entire season. So he obviously earned that Champions League title. But to not be wanted by his parent club, and then comes back and says that he wants to try to, that he had chances to move away, to want a transfer out of Barcelona, but he decided, no, I'm going to stay and win, the respect of Ronald Koeman and become a regular, player, a regular starter. He certainly had the talent to do so, but now with the emergence of teen sensation Pedri, they are just convinced, Barcelona are convinced that they can afford to let Coutinho go. And honestly, just get him out of there. Like, get him somewhere that he's wanted, because clearly Barcelona have not wanted him since they got him. They were kind of just in that, they were still in that, like, trying to replace Neymar mode, and they were just trying to pick at whoever was available, and were just sending big money to him. And Coutinho was just not ready for that move to Barcelona. He just doesn't have it, at least for that level. And, he just needs to make the move. He needs to make a move to a team that he wants. I would not be surprised if he moves back to the Premier League, where he, did so well. Maybe for a team like, like Leicester City. I think that would be a great move for them to just add some more, attacking prowess to that team that certainly needs it. And I would just be really excited to see Felipe Coutinho just make that move away. Next, we have Marcus Rashford, who is going to be receiving a massive raise in his new contract, as he is set to sign a new €300,000 a week deal with Manchester United, and certainly deserves it. I mean, with the way he's been playing of late, he is literally their star. Usually when you see those young sensations kind of like break out the way Rashford did his first season, you kind of, they don't really live up to the hype to the way Rashford has, because he has certainly lived up to it and is easily, in my opinion, their best player, at least offensively. Certainly, takes them to a different level. And honestly, I really think about it, no, he probably is their best player, because he seems to be the most, effective in attack, has a very high work rate and can just get goals at a very high rate. So, huge move for them to be able to secure him for the long run. And there should be no reason why Marcus Rashford would want to leave such a big club. Obviously, they're not playing as well as you would hope, but he can certainly be that centerpiece that they build around. And now with Edison Cavani there, he's just going to be learning even more from top talent. And he just needs to get better and better, and he certainly can. He's definitely young enough. I mean, we look at his, how old is he? Let's see, how old is Marcus Rashford? Because He is pretty young when you think about it. Let's see. Marcus Rashford is 23 years old. I mean, just he's got years and years ahead of him. Still has his best years ahead of him. Now we're going to be talking about some MLS transfer news with a possible move of Mark McKenzie, the Philadelphia Union and USMNT prospect defender, open to a January move to Scottish champions Celtic as he looks to compete at that highest level in Europe. And I mean, that's, like I've said all the time when I talked about the Brendan Aronson move to RB Salzburg, that's all we want as USMNT fans. You know, those prospects, those young players to move on to Europe, because the MLS is just not going to do it for you. You're not going to get the kind of competition that you would need to get better and better to be able to help out the USMNT, team, the US men's national team. And this would be huge. I mean, and there were talks that Celtic were interested in him, a couple, I believe in the last transfer window, but then he didn't make that move, obviously stayed with the Union, and Celtic were able to get another defender. But now it looks like it's possible that the interest could be peaking again, and McKenzie is certainly interested in that move, and it would be a huge one. He needs to do it, and he'd kind of be following in the steps of Virgil van Dijk, who was with the Celtics for a while before making that big-time money move to Liverpool. Obviously, those are, we're hoping that he can certainly take that next step. He's obviously not going to be at the level of Virgil van Dijk, but if he can be good enough and make himself one of the premier defenders in the United States, that's all we can hope for. Next, we have some news that we kind of expected, but Son Heung-min has been one of the greatest surprises this season, as he's off to the best start of his career. And it looks like his production this season has made him feel even stronger about staying with his current club, Tottenham, saying that he wants to stay there for, pretty much the rest of his career. Not surprised by that. Obviously, he's been with them for about 5 years now and has been a key player for them pretty much that entire time. And this season is obviously one of the best of his career, if not the best of his career. No, I would easily say the best of his career. And it's just, it would be so surprising to see Son on any other team but Tottenham. It's starting to turn out that way. And then lastly, we're going to just quickly talk about Memphis Depay, the Lyon winger, who has not made his decision about his future, with his contract ending, expiring at the end of the season. He looks to be set to be leaving Lyon and making that big money move somewhere else. As we should all remember, he was Barcelona's top target this past transfer window, and he wanted the move. He wanted the move to be able to work with this national team manager, or former national team manager, Ronald Koeman, and he didn't get it. Obviously, Lyon are having a pretty solid season, so it's not like he's not doing well there. But at 26 years old, he's entering his prime, and is certainly wanting of that big time money move after failing at Manchester United. He looks to rewrite his history here. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys come back when I return. We're going to be talking about the top 10 current Germany players right after this.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello guys, welcome back. If you missed the last segment, we talked about all the transfer news and rumors going on in the world of soccer as we inch closer to that January transfer window. And now we're going to be talking about the top 10 current Germany players right now. So, I mean, when you look at Germany, they're kind of in the middle of a rebuild as they're trying to put in a lot of young talent into the squad. You have Joachim Low, not trying to use many of those, older players. Of course, Neuer's still there, but he's a legendary goalkeeper that they're never going to really take out between the sticks unless, age kind of permits it. But yeah, it kind of seems like they're in a new era now, a new regime coming in with a lot of young talent being used regularly now, especially in the Euros and the Nations League recently. And so there's obviously going to be a lot of growing pains. But still, this is going to be a very, very talented list, and I'm excited to get into it. Starting with number 10, we have Leroy Sané, the 24-year-old left winger from Bayern Munich. You look at his stats, he has 207 matches played, 145 starts to go with 57 goals and 51 assists for club. And for country, he's got 24 caps, 16 starts, 5 goals, and 2 assists. Now, Leroy Sané has been known to be one of the more exciting young prospects in the league in soccer for some time now. He started off in the Bundesliga. He was with Schalke for a few years, but then he made that big time transfer move to Manchester City, and everyone was expecting him to hit it big and become one of their stars, which he did. In his first 3 seasons, he had a total of 25 goals and 27 assists in 3 seasons. That's very, very impressive. However, injuries hit him hard the next year, and he kind of fell out of favor because, guys like Raheem Sterling, and then, of course, they just kept on bringing in a lot of young talent in. So he made that move that his dream move to Bayern Munich, and went to the Bundesliga, and he's not really a regular starter for them, but he certainly is one of the key pieces to that team, and he's impressed so far this season. I mean, he still has that pace. He's still got those great technical skills that you see from him. He's got 3 goals and 3 assists in 11 appearances so far this year, and he still has a ridiculously dangerous left foot. Not extremely strong on the right, but he can certainly still score goals on that end. But like I said, he has excellent dribbling, pace, and control. Very hard to take the ball away from him. And he is a willing passer, but not always the most accurate with them. But still, he crosses it very often. Doesn't really, have like a selfish game. Likes to get his teammates involved. Links up very well. But definitely, the biggest part of his game is the flair. His speed and just his athleticism. It really pops out of his game. So Leroy Sané comes in at number 10. Certainly a big-time part of Germany's future, and certainly has a lot more room to grow at just 24 years old. Now, coming in at number 9, we have Leon Goretzka, the 25-year-old center midfielder from Bayern Munich. And yes, get used to that. We're going to have a lot of Bayern Munich players on this list. They've pretty much just taken over. I mean, what do you expect? They're in the Bundesliga, Germany. Come on. They're going to have the best German players. Now, you look at the club stats for Goretzka. He's got 271 matches played, 214 starts to go with 43 goals and 32 assists. Now, for Germany, he's got 28 caps, 20 starts to go with 12 goals and 2 assists. Now, when I think about Goretzka, I honestly believe he is one of the most underrated midfielders in the game today. I started off his career just like Leroy Sané, started it off with Schalke, and then made that, instead of going to the Premier League, he made that big-time move to Bayern Munich. But honestly, when I was first thinking about it, I didn't really feel like Goretzka was that big a name. I mean, he didn't really blow up, with big stats in Schalke, but he certainly, did what he needed to do there, and it's just that his game is very quiet. It's not someone that you would, instantly just think, oh yeah, he had a great game. He's one of those guys that don't really have the stats pop out at you to really show you that he's a great player, and that's why I feel like he's one of the most underrated midfielders in the game today. I mean, he's got underrated technical abilities, is able to get by multiple defenders and make it look super easy. He's a solid goal scorer and playmaker, can just continuously get his teammates involved and create for himself as well. Always seems to be in the right spot. He's excellent in controlling the tempo in the midfield. Is one of those premier excellent box-to-box midfielders, can pretty much do everything on the field good. He doesn't do anything exceptionally well, but he does everything good. And that is why he is one of the more all-around players on Bayern Munich and one of the most key pieces to their team. And to think that he's only 25 years old, honestly, I feel like I've heard the name Goretzka for so long now, but he's only 25. He's still's got a lot of room to grow. And as a center midfielder, he's going to be very important for Germany and their future. Now, coming in at number 8, we have literally the future of Germany in Kai Havertz, the 21-year-old attacking midfielder from Chelsea. You look at his club stats, he has 167 matches played and 141 starts to go with 50 goals and 30 assists. And for Germany, he's got 10 matches, 10 caps, 6 starts to go with 2 goals and 5 assists, which honestly is an incredible ratio. He's contributed in 7 goals or assists in 10 appearances. That is efficient, and that is a kid that is, going to be a superstar in this game if he isn't already. And the first thing that pops out to me when I look at Kai Havertz, he's a very tall player, but he's got ridiculous technical ability and composure for his age. He is extremely versatile, as he can play pretty much anywhere in that front line and anywhere in the midfield as well. He's used sometimes as a target man. He can play on the wing. He can be obviously, I think he's better used as an attacking midfielder where he can pretty much control everything with his passing and playmaking. But he can also be a holding midfielder and play deeper and be more of a deep-lying playmaker. That is how versatile and valuable Kai Havertz is. Of course, still at just 21 years old, he still needs a lot of developing to do. But on the offensive end, there's pretty much nothing that I can look at Kai Havertz and say he doesn't do that well. Very hard to get off the ball, can make defenders look silly sometimes with his insane passing and dribbling, can make pretty much any pass you need on the pitch. His crosses are just pinpoint. He makes defense cutting passes, and even though he's not the most athletic and isn't particularly strong in the air, despite his tall frame, he still dominates the game. And that is just so impressive for someone so young. Next at number 7, we have Timo Werner. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised he's this low. When I really looked at the list, I just couldn't put him any higher. I feel like the guys ahead of him certainly deserve to be there. And but Timo Werner is still one of the best goal scorers in the game today. There's no part on the pitch that he isn't comfortable scoring from, which is surprisingly extremely rare. There's not many guys that can score from any angle. Usually one would prefer to favor a certain foot to shoot with, but Werner can take shots with either one and efficiently to boot. Now, while scoring is certainly the biggest part of Werner's game, he actually has an all-around game and is very versatile, as he can play any position on that front line. He's got incredible pace. That's probably one of the biggest qualities of him, just the fact that he can just change games with how quick he is, and just cutting right through defenses with a lot of smart cuts. But his passing as well. He's a very underrated passer, links up really well with teammates, and is unselfish. Loves to get his teammates involved and gets them into the right position. Now at number 6, we have Toni Kroos, 30-year-old center midfielder from Real Madrid. Club stats, he's veteran, man. 506 matches played, 437 starts to go with 50 goals and 97 assists. And for Germany, he's got 81 caps, 72 starts to go with 12 goals and 14 assists. Now, to me, he is one of the most complete midfielders of my time. Kroos can do pretty much anything you need him to do on the pitch. He can score beautiful goals from nearly anywhere. Literally no goalkeeper is safe when he has the ball, because he can launch it from pretty much from anywhere. He's obviously great in the box, but then he's outside the box. It looks maybe he's thinking about a pass. He will launch it from 30, 35 feet. No problem. He can make defenses defense cutting passes that opens up everything for the attack. He also knows when to change the direction of play. He's such a smart player, one of the most intelligent midfielders in the world, as he rarely makes a wrong decision on the pitch. And he like his passing is so great is that he's actually Real Madrid's regular set piece taker on corner kicks or long free kicks that require crosses into the box. He is the guy to find those players in stride and just make pinpoint passes. I mean, 97 assists for his career for club, and he's just been just as important for Germany in the national side. He is probably, the most important player for them, and that's saying a lot with the amount of players they have. Next, at number 5, we have Serge Gnabry, 25-year-old right winger from Bayern Munich. He has 172 matches played, 131 starts, to go with 62 goals and 26 assists. And for Germany, he's got 16 caps, 15 starts, to go with 13 goals and 4 assists. An extremely versatile attacking player, as he can play on both flanks and score with either foot. He is a dynamite scorer who seeks those opportunities a bit more than he looks to pass, which is probably, to be honest, the only weakness in his game. But at the same time, it's one of his strengths because he's able to score at such a high rate. I mean, his technical ability is really good, and he combines that with incredible athleticism, with his speed and strength to become one of the most imposing wingers in the world. I mean, like I said, his dribbling is extremely strong, can get by multiple defenders and finish those solo runs with incredible goals. I mean, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Arjen Robben, even though obviously Robben is at a whole other level. He's all-time great type level. But he reminds me to have the same type of game where he just imposes teams with his cuts from the wing, and the thing is, he can play on both sides. He's very versatile, like I said in the beginning, and can is really has no weaknesses on the attacking end. Aside from the back, he just doesn't pass as much as you would probably want him to. Next, we have Thomas Müller, 31-year-old attacking midfielder from Bayern Munich. For club, he's got 523 matches played, 441 starts, to go with 188 goals and 153 assists. And for Germany, he's got 84 caps, 74 starts, to go with 34 goals and 17 assists. Easily the most intelligent player on this list. Müller is a genius of the game. He doesn't do any one thing at a world-class level, except probably getting into space. That is the one thing that Müller does so consistently well. He's able to make incredible cuts, to just past the back line to stay onside. He knows when to attack spaces and be available for the ball. And normally at least when I first started watching football and following it consistently, I knew Thomas Müller as just a ridiculously aggressive player who can score goals very well. Obviously, he was very all around as he got assists as well, but I saw him more as a scorer. Now he has transformed his game into becoming one of the best playmakers, if not the best playmaker, in all of the Bundesliga. And I feel like with this transformation, he should be used in the national team. Like, he should get that chance again to represent his country. Not sure if he's voiced his that he retired or whatnot, but at just 31 years old, he's such an important player in any team's midfield. And obviously, probably one of the most important players for Bayern Munich. It's hard not to see how Thomas Müller can't help out Germany make this transition from one era to the next. He would be the perfect captain and just perfect player to lead that team. But that is why he comes in at number 4, Thomas Müller. Number 3, we have Manuel Neuer, 34-year-old goalkeeper for Bayern Munich. An absolute legend of the game. In his career, he has a 772 save percentage to go with 255 clean sheets for club. And for country, he's got 81 caps and to go with a 702 save percentage and 35 clean sheets. Now, Neuer is easily one of the greatest leaders of all time. I mean, presence alone is so calming. Like, if I can only imagine like being a Bayern Munich fan and just like having him between the sticks just feels so good, because he makes plays for teams, for his team so often. It's incredible. Like, the only reason they were able to win the Champions League last season is because Manuel Neuer took his game to another level. At 34 years old, he's still one of the greatest goalkeepers in the game today. And that didn't really feel like the case a few years ago. It kind of felt like Manuel Neuer was falling off a little bit. Injuries were starting to get to him. But he turned it around and established himself again as one of the greatest goalkeepers in the world and one of the greatest goalkeepers of all time. But yeah, Manuel Neuer, even though he's still one of the greatest, he's getting a little up there in age. That's why he doesn't go any higher up this list. At number 2, we have Marc-Andre ter Stegen, the 28-year-old goalkeeper from Barcelona. Like Manuel Neuer, he's an excellent sweeper keeper. I know I didn't say that about Neuer when I was talking about him before, but that is a huge part of his game, and it's a huge part of ter Stegen's game as well. And throughout his club career, he's got a .761 save percentage to go with 141 clean sheets. Has pretty much the same clean sheet percentage as Manuel Neuer, just a little bit lower. But then for country, he's got 21 caps, 17 starts to go with an .826 save percentage and 8 clean sheets. Certainly isn't used as much. Not sure if he kind of like decided to retire since he wasn't used that much, since Manuel Neuer was the clear number 1 goalkeeper. But it's just incredible to think that this country can have 2 of the greatest goalkeepers in the world today. Just right there, number 3 and 2 on this list. And Marc-Andre ter Stegen, he did deal with some injuries this season, but he is still one of the key players for Barcelona, and one of the players that I feel like if Barcelona do some, rebuilding mode, or just, obviously with Lionel Messi possibly leaving at the end of the season, one of the guys that I feel like would just consistently still be there would be ter Stegen, because he is so important to everything that they do, and he just needs a better back line. I know it kind of looks like he's made some mistakes this season, and certainly he has, but no one's like, prone or doesn't make any mistakes, but he needs a better back line. He really does. But still, Marc-Andre ter Stegen is just an absolutely beast of a goalkeeper. Can do pretty much everything between the sticks, and deserves to be here at number 2. Now, at number 1, absolutely has to go to Joshua Kimmich, 25-year-old defensive midfielder / running back / I said running back / right back / literally whatever you want from Bayern Munich. He is one of the most versatile and valuable players in the world. He's an excellent playmaker, and he's got 61 assists for club and 30 goals as well. He can make literally any pass needed on the pitch. When he was playing right back last year, and obviously the years before that, he was always great at making those crosses into the box and finding players with pinpoint accuracy, similar to Alexander Arnold. Maybe it wasn't as consistent as Alexander Arnold in finding players with those crosses, but is still just an excellent playmaker. And now that he's moved to the defensive midfielder spot, it's only highlighted those playmaking chops even more. His ability to control the tempo of midfield, as well with his control and defensive IQ, is just incredible. Any midfield in the world would improve with the addition to Kimmich to it, and I mean, it's just, there's no one else that could have possibly been on this number 1 spot. He was such an easy place here, because he's literally the most important player for Germany. He, in my opinion, probably the second most important player for Bayern Munich, behind Lewandowski, and he's only 25 years old. It just blows my mind how much better he can get. But that's going to wrap it up for this show. Hope you guys enjoyed, but as always, thank you for listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you and have a great night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.